Hello again, and welcome to the Management Channel once more. Today we are going to be talking about performance management, but this is such a long topic that we're going to actually do it in two parts. So, this first part, we'll go over all the objectives and get on through most of the important information. So, our objectives for the entire part 1 and 2 is to define what performance management is and what the appraisal process is. We're going to learn the various methods used to evaluate employee performance, examine the different sources of appraisal information and how the process works, and we're going to try and define the characteristics of an effective performance appraisal interview, the important part of the appraisal. So, what is a performance appraisal? Well, it's a process typically performed annually by a supervisor for a subordinate, designed to help the employee understand their role, their objectives, what the expectations are of them, and so far their performance success. Performance management is a process of creating a work environment in which people can perform to the best of their ability. Simply stated, a performance appraisal is a process of assessing how well employees are performing their jobs, defining both what they do well and also defining where they need to improve. Regardless of whatever method you use, most important is the frequency in which it is conducted. There are different companies using different ways: annual, semi-annual, quarterly, etc. And the manner in which it is conducted is also important. Now, I'm going to say this part. I don't agree with annual performances because what happens is the employee tends to do a really good job close to their appraisal date. In other words, in a month or two, they're doing great work. And then after they get their appraisal, they can slack off for the rest of the year until within a month or two of their appraisal again. So I'm not a big fan of annual performance. I think this should be done either quarterly or semi-annually at least. Objective performance measures are those measures of job performance that are easily and directly counted and quantifiable. Subjective performance measures of job performance require someone to judge or assess a worker's performance. Behavior observation scales are rating scales that indicate the frequency with which a worker performs specific behaviors, representative of their job dimensions, and critical to what we call a successful job performance. Some companies use the 360-degree feedback, one of the latest methods used. It's a process in which feedback is obtained from the boss, your coworkers, your peers, your subordinates, and sometimes even your customers, and then the employee themselves. The performance appraisal process starts off with goals set to align with higher level goals. Define what the behavioral expectations and standards are and align them with the employee and organizational goals. Do an ongoing performance feedback provided during the cycle. Then do a performance appraisal by management. Do a formal review session conducted, going over with how they're doing and what needs to be worked on. And then HR decision making, whether a decision as to whether there's a promotion or a pay increase. Purposes of a performance appraisal: there's basically two big reasons: developmental and administrative. Now, I'm not going to read all of these to you. Please take a moment to review these yourself. If you need more time, also feel free to pause. There are reasons why sometimes the performance appraisal programs fail. One is a lack of top management information or support, and or both actually. Unclear performance standards. The person doing the rating is biased. If they don't like you, they're going to downgrade you. If they really like you, they're going to overlook certain things and give you better scores. Too many forms to complete. Use of the appraisal program for conflicting or political purposes, big mistake. And I add, again, the frequency of appraisals. And I've already told you how I feel about annual appraisals. They just don't seem to be a good tool. Managerial issues concerning appraisals. Well, there's a little face-to-face discussion between the manager and the employee being appraised. The relationship between the employee's job description and the criteria on the appraisal form may differ or may not be very clear. Managers feel that there's little or no benefit from the time and energy they're going to spend on the process, or they are only concerned with bad performances and don't bother highlighting some of the good things the employee does. Managers tend to dislike the face-to-face confrontation of appraisal interviews. They don't like to tell someone they're not doing well. Managers are not sufficiently adept at reading employees or providing them with appraisal feedback. They're not trained properly, in other words. The judgmental role of appraisal conflicts with the helping role of developing employees. So you have to make sure you keep a good balance between the appraisal so that you're trying to help them and not badger them. The key should be helping them get better, not pointing out everything they're doing wrong. The appraisal is just a once-a-year event, and there's just very little follow-up afterwards. To me, that's one of the biggest reasons they fail. So developing an effective appraisal standard, you need to have performance standards, and they have to be based on job-related requirements derived from job analysis done by HR and reflected in the job description and job specifications, also created by HR. They help translate an organization's goals and objectives into job requirements that define both acceptable and unacceptable performance levels. And they should be calibrated. Well, what does that mean? It's a process whereby managers meet to discuss the performance of individual employees to ensure their employee appraisals are in line with each other. So for strategic relevance, the individual standards directly relate to strategic goals. For criterion deficiency, standards capture all of an individual's contributions. Criterion contamination is performance capability is not reduced by any external factors. And, of course, consistency or reliability. The standards have to be quantifiable, measurable, and stable or consistent. Some legal guidelines for appraisals. The appraisal ratings must be job-related. They must be given a written copy of their job standards in advance of the appraisal, so they know what they're being evaluated for. Managers who conduct the appraisal must be able to observe the behavior of their rating. Supervisors should be or must be trained to use the appraisal form correctly. Appraisals should be discussed openly with employees and counseling or some kind of corrective guidance offered. And there should be an appeals procedure established to enable employees to express their disagreement with the appraisal if they don't feel that it's fair and correct. Alternate sources of appraisal from the superior can come from team members, peers, suppliers, customers, your subordinates, from yourself, of course, and, believe it or not, from maybe your vendors in the interaction that you have with them. Sources of performance appraisal: a manager and or supervisor. Appraisal done by an employee's manager and reviewed by a manager one level higher. Self-appraisal is done by the employee being evaluated, generally on an appraisal form completed by the employee themselves prior to the performance interview, and thus the two can be compared. A subordinate appraisal is an appraisal of the superior by an employee, which is more appropriate for developmental than actual administrative purposes. A peer appraisal is an appraisal by fellow employees compiled into a single profile for use in an interview conducted by the manager of the employee. Why peer appraisals are not used more often? Well, peer ratings are simply a popularity contest. If your peers like you, they're going to vote good things about you. If they don't like you, then they're going to say bad things about you. Pretty obvious, huh? Managers are reluctant to give up control over that appraisal process to give to the peers. Maybe the manager sees things one way, but the employees all see the job as something different. Those receiving low ratings might retaliate against their peers. So if you give me a really low or bad score, I may be in turn looking to get even with you. And sometimes peers rely on stereotypes. A team appraisal is based on total quality methods, recognizes a team accomplishment rather than individual performance. A customer appraisal is one that, like a team appraisal, is based on TQM concepts and seeks evaluation from both external and internal customers. Remember, in an internal workplace, the person who gets the work that you do next is your customer. There are pros and cons of 360-degree appraisals, and there's numerous ones for good reasons, and there's numerous ones for bad reasons. I'm going to let you read over this, and again, feel free to pause so that you can read it all thoroughly. What to discuss in a performance appraisal feedback session? First of all, the overall progress, an analysis of any accomplishments made and any shortcomings, problems encountered in meeting job requirements, opportunities for the employee to improve their performance. Also, look at long range plans and opportunities for both the job and the individual's career. And then a general discussion of possible plans and goals for the upcoming appraisal period. It says here a year, but again, I'm not a fan of annual. Training your appraisers who do the performance appraisal. You need to provide an explanation of performance appraisal systems objectives so that the raters understand the compensation and development purposes for which the appraisal is to be used. You need to explain the mechanics of the rating system, how frequently they're going to be conducted, who's going to conduct them, and what are the standards for performance. You want to alert your raters to the weaknesses and problems of appraisal systems so that they can avoid making mistakes or falling into those weaknesses. The error of central tendency is a rating error in which all employees are rated about average. The leniency or strictness error is a rating error in which the appraiser tends to give all employees either unusually high or unusually low ratings. A forced distribution is a performance appraisal ranking system where raters are required to place a certain percentage of employees into various performance categories. Recency error is a rating error in which appraisal is based largely on an employee's most recent behavior than on a behavior throughout the entire appraisal process. And that's why I say I'm against annual. This is a big fall down for a recency error. A contrast error is a rating error in which an employee's evaluation is biased either upward or downward because of comparison with another employee that you just previously evaluated. You can't pick out one employee and say, okay, this is the standard. The standard is what it is. Are they doing this? Are they not doing it? And if so, to what degree? Similar to me error. Oh, brother, a good one. An appraiser in which an appraiser inflates the evaluation of an employee because of a mutual personal connection. And yes, it happens. Rating error training. Observe other managers making errors. Actively participate in discovering their own errors. Practice job-related tasks to reduce the errors they tend to make. Feedback skills training is important by communicating effectively, diagnosing the root cause of performance problems, and then setting proper goals and objectives. The trait methods. There are different ways to do it. You can do a graphic rating scale, a mixed standard scale, a forced choice, or essay. And yes, we're going to discuss these. The graphics rating scale is a trait approach to performance appraisal whereby each employee is rated according to a scale of individual characteristics. The mixed standard is an approach to performance appraisal similar to other scale methods, but based on comparison with, like better than, equal to, or worse than, a particular standard. This will give you an example of a graphic rating scale. You can see the categories there on the left, but then on the top right, needs instruction or guidance, has required knowledge, has exceptional knowledge, or second one, lacks imagination, meets necessary requirements, unusually resourceful. So you're picking a category to evaluate them, and the standards here are fairly clear. A forced choice method requires the rater to choose from statements designed to distinguish between successful and unsuccessful, works hard or lacks good work habits, produces poor quality, works quickly, etc. The essay method is a weird one. I haven't seen this one done. It requires a rater to compose a statement describing employee behavior in pretty much an essay format. So please make sure you take a look at part 2 of this. We're going to go over some more important information. Thank you for watching so far. Have a good day.